Hi there bike riders, and welcome to another video about bicycle infrastructure. I'm the Bike Route Buddy reviewing bicycle infrastructure, or lack thereof. Today we're in Geelong looking at the 10 worst pieces of bicycle infrastructure that could really do with some kind of improvement. I won't be looking at places where there is no infrastructure, as these could easily fill the top 10. I'll be looking at places where bike riders are directed to or are expected to ride by signage, pavement markings or routes on maps. Hopefully after highlighting these issues, the relevant authorities will take a look and improve them. So let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is the connection between the shared paths at Finesford Common that connect through to the shared path at the new Finesford Green Estate. There are great shared paths around the common and through the new estate. You can connect the paths by crossing the busy Hamilton Highway or going underneath the bridge under the highway. It's great if you're a seasoned mountain biker. It's a bit of fun with the steep gravel gradient and the big washouts, but for your general punter on a hybrid bike with skinny tyres, it's a bit of a no-go zone in either direction. You either spin your back wheel going up, that is if you have enough leg power to get across the rut, or skid on the way down, not to mention having to take that sharp left corner after you've gathered speed on the way down. Number 9. This is one of the classic car door zone of death bike lanes. It is marked on Geelong's active travel maps as a bike route for beginners. But one look at this and I'm back to driving my car. It is very poorly maintained and you can't even get out of the car door death zone while riding in the bike lane. Not to mention the bike lane just finishes before the intersection, even though it shows on the map continuing all the way through to Latrobe Terrace. We did a full video about this section of Fine Street, and another one about the active transport maps. Check out them on this channel. Coming in at number 8, this is the connection from what appears to be a shared path over the Mural Street Bridge to connect with the bike lane on Barwon Heads Road. There is no ramp at the end, so you just have to drop off the curb into the bike lane. It's okay coming along here on a mountain bike, but I'm not that keen on dropping off the curb on my road bike. The other day I came along here on my commuter bike with panniers full of groceries. I had to stop to get down off the curb. We did a full video about this intersection, where it took us well over 4 minutes to cross the road to connect up the shared path to the bike lane on the other side, before having to drop off this curb. Number 7. Well, this is the train crossing on the shared path on the Bay Trail beside Corriacare Road. This features heavily in our Spirit of Tasmania terminal video. There is a cyclist dismount sign, but does anyone really think that people will get off their bikes and push here? The corners were way too tight to get around, even if you were pushing a bike, so they seem to just continually be removed by frustrated bike commuters. This has left behind a big step. There is also a gaping canyon with steep lips on each side of the actual line. This is not just an issue for people on bikes, but walkers, not to mention anyone with mobility issues or in a wheelchair. I've got my doubts that anyone in a wheelchair could even get through here. The second crossing is so overgrown and the sensory pads at the crossing are all peeling off, creating a trip hazard. They pose more of a risk than a train, as it doesn't look like there's been a train over here in many years, especially since they pulled up the track just after it crosses the path. Number 6 is the intersection of the Southern Bikelink and Little Fine Street. We've made a couple of videos about this. Drivers coming out of Little Fine Street don't stop at the stop sign and they don't look left. I had a car pull out in front of me causing me to crash, and there have been many other incidents here. After our first video, City of Greater Geelong modified the signage, but it hasn't really improved the intersection. Still, after the improvements, only 25% of drivers stopped and only 28% of drivers looked left. Most of the Southern Bikelink, or what has been built anyway, is pretty good, but this intersection still causes bike riders a lot of stress. Coming in at number 5 is on the Western Bikelink, heading west just after crossing Latrobe Terrace and entering Villamanta Street. The pavement markings send you on an obscure roundabout route in order to get you onto Villamanta Street. You have to first cross Villamanta Street, then perform a really tight right-hand turn to get back onto Villamanta Street, where the sharrow directs you across the road onto the wrong side of the road and straight into parked cars. Does anyone really expect that a person on a bike is going to follow this route? Infrastructure needs to be built for the people that use it, and these pavement markings are absolutely useless. Shouldn't the bike infrastructure be built to be fit for purpose, rather than just some cheap pavement markings, then making an announcement about how the City of Greater Geelong has done such a wonderful job installing bike lanes? The same design has been used at the intersection of Villamanta Street and Pakenham Street. No one on a bike is going to go off to the left, to do a right-hand turn. These markings are just here to protect car drivers, as when a bike rider follows the desire line and a car turns into them, it is a simple defence for the car driver to say that the bike rider wasn't following the markings. I wasn't going to mention this bit, but I'm not sure what these markings on Villamanta Street are for. Are these the bike lanes? Before we get into the top 4, we're going to go through a few honourable mentions that didn't make the top 10. But before we start on those, don't forget to subscribe to see more videos. Honourable mention number 1. This is the bike lane signs on Barrable Road. This one heading west has a sign, but the bike lane has just vanished. It is probably better without a bike lane anyway, as it is just a car door zone of death. Going back the other way, there is a sign here, but make up your own mind about this one. Honourable mention number 2 is the intersection at Packington Street and Gordon Avenue. There is a narrow bit of green paint that directs you across the path of cars turning left, as the cars get a green arrow. This one feels like it is just here to keep bike riders out of the way of people driving cars, and not for an improvement for the bike riders' experience. Honourable mention number 3 is the narrow lane on the Esplanade. It is so narrow and drivers don't respect it at all. At least when the traffic is stopped, you can filter through to the front, but there is no way I'm overtaking drivers if the traffic is moving. Honourable mention number 4 is Mural Station Road. This bike lane just does not exist, even though it is signed and marked on the active travel maps and included in the bike lane statistics. City of Greater Geelong were going to remove these signs after we made a video about it, but that was 2 months ago and they still haven't removed them. The last honourable mention goes to the active travel maps. They tell people to use them to plan their bike ride to the shops, library or school, yet direct people onto 6-lane freeway shoulder and into car door zones of death, and to bike lanes that don't exist. There are so many errors in the active travel maps, I'd be pretty embarrassed if they were my work. Alright, so back to our top 10, coming in at number 4, is the section of the Ted Wilson Trail between Barrable Road and Barwon River. It looks like it was built as part of the ring road construction, but was just thrown down without much thought. The gradient is so much steeper than the ring road and it is so overgrown and unkept. I don't know how many hundreds of millions were spent on the ring road, and there must have been only a few cents spared for this project. After it was built as shared path, someone then decided it was too steep and put gates and no bike signs at each end. This was obviously not updated on the City of Greater Geelong Asset Register, as it still appears on the latest maps as shared path. Was it deliberately not updated to inflate the shared path statistics, or is it just incompetence that prevented it from being updated? The best outcome is for this path to be fixed and made suitable for bike riders, but if it's not going to be done, don't keep telling us it's a shared path. Number 3 has got to be the disappearing bike lane on Yarra Street. Coming up from the waterfront, once you cross Mallop Street, you are just thrown onto the road amongst moving traffic and parked cars. You don't have to do much research to find that the biggest barriers to increased bike commuting are safety, or lack of protected bike lanes, and lack of bike networks. The missing link has a huge effect, as the bike route is only as good as its worst section, and it prevents people from considering this as an option. Number 2 is similar to number 3. The generally good southern bike link comes to an abrupt end at Little Mallop Street. This is a real barrier to riding, as you can't connect safely to the Bay Trail. Connecting up the Barwon River Trail to the Bay Trail via an off-road link was an action in the City of Greater Geelong cycling strategy from 2008, and it still hasn't been done 16 years later. This missing block negates all the good work done from the Barwon River to this point. There are plans to fill this in, but we've already been waiting 3 years since the southern bike link was installed, and I hope to see it in my lifetime. Drum roll for number 1 on our list of bike infrastructure that needs improving is the crossing of the Bay Trail over the freight entrance to the Spirit of Tasmania terminal. This is a shared path, yet it has a cyclist dismount sign. Do the engineers really expect bike riders to get off and push across this intersection? I think that is as likely as one of the truck drivers dismounting from their cab and pushing their truck through. Rather than building the right infrastructure and making it safe, the engineers are just washing their hands saying, "We told you to dismount." The cyclist dismount sign isn't even the reason this made number 1. If we look at the crossing closely, it has a 90-degree left turn, but it is not really clear if you don't see the white markings on the white concrete. Like me and many other bike riders, you just go straight ahead and over this invisible curb. I know a couple of people that have come off here, but the response from the authorities is, Not our problem. We told you to dismount. The worst thing about this is that it's very new and was built in 2023. Are we still building bike infrastructure like this? I thought we would have better design standards than this in 2024. Imagine the uproar if there was an invisibly built obstacle in the road. That would be redesigned immediately. I'd still like to see a sign for drivers saying, "Drivers dismount and get out and push." The other thing that gets me about this here is that to get a mode shift from people driving cars to some more people riding bikes, our networks need to be efficient. If you have to stop every couple of 100 metres and dismount and walk, it defeats the purpose of riding, slows down the commute and puts people back in cars. So there you have it. That is my top 10 and a few honourable mentions. Let us know in the comments if you have any more that you can think of that should have made the top 10. I'd love to take the councillors and the engineers out to look at some of these issues. I know a few of the engineers ride bikes, but I don't think any of the councillors do. I might do a video on good infrastructure in Geelong, so let us know in the comments what you have found that I could include in a good infrastructure video. Thanks for watching. I'm the Bike Route Buddy and I'd love to see you out riding on some great bike infrastructure. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button to see more videos about riding bikes around Geelong.